Wells Fargo presents one of the surest ways to grow your money. A Wells Fargo CD account, where you can earn a 5.00% annual percentage yield on an 11-month term with a minimum opening deposit of $5,000. Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/CD rates to open a CD account and start growing your savings with us.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast with the spotlight on section hikers.
And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast, the premier podcast with the spotlight on section hikers, and I'm your host, Julie Jester Gayhart. I am back with my co-host, Austin Wallis, as we continue our talk about post-traumatic stress. If you didn't get a chance to listen to last week's show, which was episode number 100, where Austin shared with us what PTS means to him, who PTS might affect, and how he copes with PTS, I highly recommend going back and listening to that episode. It will be a great lead-in to this week's show. Austin goes more in depth this week as he continues to share with us about coping with his own post-traumatic stress. I think you will find that Austin values very deeply his time he can spend out section hiking, paddling, and planning future adventures. And by the way, you will also hear toward the end of the episode that this marks the second anniversary of the podcast. How cool is that? Thanks for joining me for this week's episode. Happy second podcast anniversary to everyone. And now on to my continued talks with co-host Austin. All right, co-host Austin, welcome back for part 2 of our talks about post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, this has been fun. This has definitely been one of my favorite things to talk about and favorite podcasts for sure. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Again, I am very thankful and grateful that you are willing to talk about this. And just so the listeners know, even though it has been a week since you guys heard the first episode. So if you didn't get a chance to listen to that one, please go back and listen to that. But Austin and I are actually recording these in real time back to back. That way it is fresh in our minds and we can continue our awesome conversation. So we left off last episode. You kind of defined in your reality and in your world what PTS is to you. Mm-hmm. We gave people example of events and different things that can cause PTS. And now we're kind of going to get into, we also left off, you read a wonderful thing at the end of the episode, which was awesome. And now we're going to get into your coping mechanisms because you do deal with PTS. And as you said before, it was a slow burn, and I'm imagining you're still continuing it. Is that, I guess I should ask you, is this an ongoing thing?
Oh yeah. I don't think, I think as long as I wear a uniform and probably even well after that, I'm still going to have something to deal with. And so it's a journey by no stretch of the imagination is this going to go away anytime soon. So yeah, it's definitely something that we deal with every day and just got to chip away at it and get better. And so that's why I keep going out. Right.
Well, you did mention it last episode too, that, healing in nature is not a new thing. It's not anything So how did you go about figuring out that was what was going to work for you with this?
So I talked about it in our very first conversation when I came back from Afghanistan, I was just kind of in this weird mental state, kind of in limbo in life, and ended up just deciding randomly to go on a backpacking trip, a solo backpacking trip by myself to Cumberland Island National Seashore. And that Cumberland specifically has a special meaning for me because that's where I grew up camping. My family went there almost every year as I was growing up. And it kind of feels like home. And so coming back from Afghanistan, it just felt very natural to go to Cumberland and experience some things from my childhood and just kind of be one with nature. And it was exactly what the doctor ordered. But I think specifically in that case, I had been so blinded. I'd been in a combat zone for so long that my mind couldn't see beyond it. I couldn't see that there was still beauty in the world. And so being by myself, being on Cumberland helped me see that, yes, there still is indeed beauty in this world. There is still peace in this world, even though there are, violent places that demonstrate the worst that humanity has to offer. There are still places like Cumberland that are peaceful and beautiful and serene. And so that is where I didn't fully realize it at the time, what was happening for me mentally. But looking back on it now, that's 100% what was going on. I was healing mentally. And that trip specifically, even though it was only 4 days, definitely helped me transition back into real life to become a human being again. And so that was where it started. And then just through the course of life, backpacking really didn't become a thing that I did regularly, at least until recently, like in the last 5 years, I guess. And started going out with my buddies from work, and we did some trips together. And that's where it really started taking off for me. One, because, I work as a first responder, so they're first responders too. So it's just as therapeutic for them. And I think being out together on these trips helped all of us. And it's and everybody has, everybody's got their thing in life that they get to do outside of work, whether that's fishing, carpentry, knitting, whatever, making YouTube videos. And that was the therapy that I didn't realize I needed until I had it. And it went from the natural escape, I think, that everybody looks for. And it turned into more than just an escape. It turned into its own therapy to manage everything that was going on at work, because in the last episode, we talked about all the things that first responders manage and deal with on a daily basis, whether that's some type of traumatic injury, doing death notifications for family members, interviewing sexual assault victims. These are all things that, by themselves might not necessarily trigger traumatic stress. But when you put them all together and then add in some a lack of sleep or, stresses from home and anything like that. And so it turns into something that you got to deal with.
So what tactics do you use? As you're saying this, I'm really listening and I'm absorbing what you're saying. And some of the first things that come to my mind are, what tactics do you use when it comes to, is planning a trip? Does that help you? Researching new places to go hike, does that help you? Because obviously every day you can't get out. I mean, you're not that far from the Mountains of Sea Trail. So,
yeah.
You do kind of have that segment 10 in your backyard. But if you don't mind, share with us some tactics that you use that not only help you, but could help people out there listening.
I'm very much a compartmentalizer. And so like you talked about the trip planning and like for me specifically, making YouTube videos, creating content, for the internet, those are my boxes, like everybody, when I was first starting out in this job, one of the things they talked about was having boxes in your life. And, you've got your work box, you got your family box, you got your me box. And so for that me box, that's everything nature, everything, all my YouTube channel and pictures and everything like that. And so if you've got, you're working on your work box and you're just, it's coming out both ears, you're just overflowing, close that work box, set it to the side, bring out your me box and open that up. And then you don't think about that work box. All you're thinking about is this me box and everything that's in there. And that, for me personally, helps my brain kind of recalibrate. And then being out on trail, it's the same thing, because especially when you're hiking, there's a rhythm to it. You wake up, eat breakfast, you hike, you make it to camp, you eat, you sleep, you rinse and repeat, however many days you're out there. And so there's a simple rhythm to it. And just like what my brother said in his poem that we read last week, it redefines necessity, and it shows you what you actually need out of life and what you really want. What you worry about on trail is simple compared to what we worry about during the day or in our everyday life. Like I remember,
I know that's one of the things I crave is, clearly the simplicity.
Yes.
It's like, how do I get back to that? How do I do what I have to do over here in the 90% where I spend my life to get back to the 10% where we could be on trail and out, doing our section hikes or, in your case, paddling or, whatever you got going on.
Yeah. And so I think it helps, it's an escape, but it's also a way for our minds to recalibrate themselves, to focus on something else. I got into whitewater kayaking last year, and that is night and day difference from any kind of hiking. I mean, that is an adrenaline-based sport, but it's still got that therapeutic value to me because one, it's just fun, but there's some fear involved. It's scary. You're overcoming things that scare you, doing things that you didn't think were possible. But it's nearly impossible to think about something else while you're running a rapid. Because if your mind is somewhere else,
life, right? Your life.
if your mind is somewhere else other than that rapid, you're going to find yourself upside down quickly. And so it's a self-correcting error.
You also have this thing on here. Like I said, you guys before, Austin sends me amazing show notes. So if you ever want to be a co-host, you got to send amazing show notes. But what's interesting on here, you have this thing on here, clearing off the desk.
Yeah. Well, that's
got to be a tactic, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm not a very original thinker. And so I totally stole that from Benny Braden. When I was listening to one of his podcasts, that's one of his things that he describes. And he talks about clearing off the desk, and the desk is our lives. And so in the course of everyday life, you get a whole bunch of stuff just piled up on there, and it just becomes a mess. And there's stuff all over the place, things that need attention, but you can't get to them because they're buried under, X, Y, and Z. And so for him, and then for me, he helped me kind of identify this in myself. But hiking, being outdoors, the long distance kayaking that I get to do, that is a way to clear off the desk. And so it gives you time to think, time to listen to nature, time to listen to yourself, and kind of clear off that desk. So what you do is you pick something up off that desk that's bothering you, some issue that needs to be worked out, and you work it out in your head, and deal with it. File it away where it needs to go, and then move on to the next one. And, you may, depending on what that thing on the desk is that you're trying to deal with it, you may only get one thing done for an entire trip, or you may get a few things cleared off. But what that does is when you come back, you got a clear desk, and you're able to manage the things that are coming at you in regular everyday life probably a lot better. You're handling things. You don't feel as overwhelmed. Probably a better person to be around. I know. I like to think that I'm a much better person to be around when I come back from a trip, just because I've had time to process things. Especially as a first responder, sometimes you got to process the things that you encounter, because they're not normal things that everybody sees, and sometimes they're pretty awful. And so, one thing that the mistake I've made early in my career was I bottled it all up, but being outdoors and just experiencing nature has helped me to not necessarily talk about it, because some people don't want to hear about it, and that's perfectly normal. But it helps me kind of talk to myself, either physically talking to myself or just talking, thinking it out in my head. But that's that
So
clearing
would you
off the
say
desk.
that clearing off the desk, would you say for you that's purpose driven?
Oh, absolutely. That's the difference between being outdoors as an escape versus being outdoors for the actual therapy. Like, that's something you do. That's the medicine that helps you get better. And so I think that right there is what separates just normal, like, oh, isn't this nice, being outdoors, to I need this. This is something that I need to do so that I can be a better person. Just like, if you're prescribed medication for an injury or prescribed medication to feel better, that's the outdoors for me, is that medication. It helps me be a better person at home. It helps me be a better boss, a better supervisor, a better person to work with at work. So yeah, that's what makes it better for me. That's how I manage it, and how it's helped me get better.
So with all of this being said, did you seek out help? I know there's some resources out there and things available, but how would somebody know what to look for or how to get help or who to talk to? Is there anything you can give the listeners, like, hey, this is what I did, there are some resources out there?
Yeah, I would, for the military specifically, if you just Google Military One Source, I have used them personally multiple times, and the Military One Source has a multitude of different resources available. One of them is mental health professionals and counseling, and it opens up the doors to a lot of different things. So for the military, even if you spent 3 days in the military One Source is still an option for you. On the first responder side, it's more where you are, as far as what you're, which agency you work for, and that kind of thing, as far as resources go. So I don't have specific things on the first responder side, as far as like a number you can call or something like that. But
are there some outdoor groups or anything that you're familiar with?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to segue into. So there's a organization called Warrior Expeditions, and they are actually. I learned about Warrior Expeditions when I was buying stuff on Outdoor Research, and when I was checking out, they ask, do you want to donate to X, Y, and Z? And Warrior Expeditions was one of the options that you could donate to, and I was like, I don't even know what that is. But Warrior Expeditions is a fantastic organization. It's a nonprofit. They raise money and then will sponsor these through hikes, through paddles for veterans. So the veterans apply to Warrior Expeditions, and then Warrior Expeditions provides them with the logistics gear to go do a through hike. So every year, Warrior Expeditions will send people on the Appalachian Trail, PCT. I really like, because they'll do through paddles. So they'll do.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So like, there's a group that just finished the Mississippi River. They paddled the entire Mississippi River, which, holy smokes, they can have that. But
well, we determined you were a section hiker,
right.
So you might be a section paddler.
Yeah, I'm definitely a section paddler. A couple of weeks is probably my limit. But but yeah, Warrior Expeditions makes that a reality. They even sponsored a group to do the Mountains to Sea Trail.
Awesome.
So they make that a reality for veterans. And so Warrior Expeditions, if you're a veteran and you want to try a through hike but don't even know where to start, go talk to those folks. They may or may not be able to hook you up with a through hike or a through paddle.
But they can be an information source.
Yeah, they're great folks.
And I will also make sure all of that is available in the show notes of this episode.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. The other one that, and again, it's kind of veteran based, is it's called Team River Runner, and that's another national nonprofit. They have local chapters all over the country, but they focus on getting veterans into kayaking, paddling, and that kind of thing. I actually just saw a video yesterday. A friend of a friend, his channel is called Southern Yak. First name's Tony, but Tony is part of a Team River Runner chapter out of Atlanta, and they got a Marine Vietnam veteran, into doing his first descent on the Ocoee River. And the Ocoee River is a legit whitewater river in southeastern United States, but this veteran's wheelchair bound. So that would have been very, very challenging for him physically to run a Class 4 or Class 5 river. So they put him in a tandem with an experienced paddler and got him down that river. And that's a once in a lifetime thing that, you just seeing the look on his face at the end was just priceless. But Team River Runner made that happen. Locally here in the Triangle, Team River Runner has provided gear and experience for veterans that are looking to get into kayaking. So if you are interested in, well, specifically if you're interested in whitewater kayaking, Team River Runner is a source, but I will tell you that just about any paddling club is going to be very welcoming. And I've been very pleasantly surprised with how awesome people are. And it's just like the trail community, the hiking community, they're so welcoming. Everybody is included. The paddling community is the exact same way. Everybody's invited. Everybody is welcome. But yeah, so if you're interested in getting into paddling, the Carolina Canoe Club is a great spot to start. But there's also local chapters of Team River Runner as well that kind of work in tandem with the paddling clubs too. So,
well, that is awesome. That is awesome. And I know that, you've listened to, and one of your, I guess you mentor, I would call Benny maybe a mentor for you.
Yeah. Even though he doesn't know who I am. I'm
I know
total
Benny,
internet stalker.
And Benny is actually a good friend of mine. I don't know if you knew that. So I'm going to connect you guys for real.
Right on.
I actually was texting with him yesterday, but he is been very open and vocal, as you stated, about his PTS. And I know there is a program out there called Reboot Recovery, and I'm going to make sure that link is in the show notes as well. And their theme, I guess, is overcoming trauma together. Mm-hmm. And it is specifically, I'm looking at the website right now. First thing it says reboot is for everyone. No one is immune from trauma, but everyone can heal. It says reboot is for the military and reboot is for first responders. And I will leave this link in there because no matter where you are across the country, there are resources for you. And that was my main goal with asking you that is, and you gave us resources. There is stuff out there for people.
Yeah. And it's all it takes is just a simple gesture, reaching out. Sometimes that first time is the hardest part, because once you do that, people are going to welcome you in very easily. So, but you gotta, unfortunately, it takes that first step, and sometimes that can be the hardest.
Yeah. And it's actually, I don't know if admitting's the right word, but understanding.
Yeah. No.
I would say understanding. So as we wrap this episode up, Austin, I mean, again, I just want to say personally, I cannot thank you enough. First of all, for joining me on some episodes, and most importantly, for having these conversations about PTS, sharing more about who you are, because I know for sure there's somebody out there that needs to hear this.
Yeah.
And part of my podcast is, yes, we want to talk about hiking. Yes, we want to talk about the wonderful things. And by the way, as we get into, I think this episode is my 2-year anniversary.
Right on.
And as we get into year 3, I want to have more of these kinds of conversations.
This is what drives us. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what drives us, because there's more people out there that need to hear this and might be willing to share their story.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything you want to leave? There's probably a lot you want to leave the listeners with, but to wrap this up, as far as the second part of this episode, what do you want to leave us with, Austin?
I think just going back how we ended the last episode with the poem, why do we go to the wilderness? Why wouldn't we?
Why wouldn't we?
There's just so much that it can give us that we just got to open ourselves to it. So, yeah.
Well, again, Austin, thank you very much. And you guys, Austin is going to be back with me in a couple weeks, and we're not going to tell you what that episode's about.
It's going to be a little more lighthearted, but
it's going to be definitely a little light, and it might have something to do with, you want to give them a little bit of a hint?
It's going to have to do with something that we all love talking about, gear.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go, everybody. All right, Austin, I will be back and we'll chat soon.
Talk to you then.
I am so thankful that Austin had a level of comfort to share with all of us about his coping with PTS. I think we can all take a lesson from Austin by getting outside, clearing our minds, and planning that next section hike. There's no time like the present to get outside, take a hike or paddle, and share with someone you love what the outdoors means to you. I will be back with Austin here in a few weeks. As he alluded to, we are going to chat about some very specific hiking gear items. If you have an interest in being on the podcast, I am looking for new section hiker guest and section hiker co-host for 2022. Send me an email to jester@jestersectionhiker.com and share a little bit about yourself and why you want to be a guest or a co-host with me on the show. As always, you could go to hikingradionetwork.com and click on the Jester Section Hiker Show to find all of today's show notes, pictures, and links mentioned in this episode. If you find value in what we do here at the network, please consider leaving us a donation by clicking on any one of the donate buttons found on our website. And be sure to let us know why you love our shows. Thanks for listening. Be safe out there. Happy section hiking. And now on to year 3 of the show.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way. If you ever get lost, or if the trail leads you astray, the music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word, and you beat the drum. Round up the troops, and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets in these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Wells Fargo presents one of the surest ways to grow your money. A Wells Fargo CD account, where you can earn a 5.00% annual percentage yield on an 11-month term with a minimum opening deposit of $5,000. Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/CD rates to open a CD account and start growing your savings with us.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A. member FDIC.